Hi, I'm Reba Hervis, Artistic Director at Overshadow Theatrical Productions. Welcome to this week's episode From the Wings. With me this week, I have Rebecca Leland, our co-host, and a very, very special guest, the man behind From the Wings, my husband, Chuck Hervis.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for being on.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. I mean, Chuck is always giving us ideas of what we can talk about. And actually something has recently happened in the news. And when he was telling me, I was like, oh, that is kind of a lot.
Yeah.
I said, I think you should come on and you should tell us about what this new breaking news is. So, Chuck, what do you have for us?
Well, it goes a long way back. And actually it starts with the jazz singer in 1927.
Okay, so now I have to stop here. Does that sound familiar to you?
The jazz singer?
Yes.
Is that like a play, or are we talking about a specific jazz singer?
We are talking about a movie, The Jazz Singer. So,
Right.
Chuck?
The first talking movie, The Jazz Singer.
What did we do?
Oh,
the summer,
yes!
right? This story starts
With
there.
The Jazz Singer.
Oh, my
After
word.
The Jazz Singer and talking movies became a thing for about 20 years, the Hollywood studios just went gangbusters, referred to as the golden age of Hollywood, in which they controlled everything. They controlled the production, they controlled the distribution, and they controlled the showing of movies. They were allowed to own movie theaters, and they had contracts in which they controlled the price and they controlled what was shown, so that if a theater wanted to show one of their movies, they sold it with 6 others.
Wow.
And it was a booking, it was called block booking, and they had to show the other 5
In order to get the one.
in order to get the one. And so the whole movie industry was controlled by the Hollywood studios.
Wow.
And according to the antitrust laws, it was what was known as a vertical and a horizontal antitrust. A vertical meaning from making the movie to distributing it to showing it. And then horizontal, all the studios got together and agreed to do the same thing. So they had a complete monopoly on the business. In 1948, there were 90 million people in America who were regular moviegoers. 60% of Americans were going to the movies.
And this is when?
This is 1948.
1948, okay.
That's the same year that the Justice Department got a case in the U.S. Supreme Court that broke up the monopoly of the movie theaters, or I'm sorry, of the movie studios. The Department of Justice had these antitrust efforts, and it had the case was United States versus Paramount, and there was something called the Paramount Decree that came about in 1948, in which the studios were basically broken up. They couldn't have their horizontal or vertical monopolies anymore. They thought that they were going to go bankrupt, but they turned to television. And so they started pouring money into TV. And within 10 years, by 1960, there were only 45 million regular moviegoers in the United States. So it went from 90 million to 45 million because of the onslaught of television.
Because there was an option.
It was an option.
Yeah.
And so for all the years since 1948, there has been this decree where the movie studios could not control the whole process. In August of 2020, we're in the middle, right in the middle of the pandemic. Something happened. The court system and the Department of Justice ended the Paramount decrees, and basically the movie studios, the studios said, "Well, we can own theaters again, but we're not that interested because there's a pandemic and movie theaters are probably going to go out of business."
Wow.
And so no one was paying attention to the fact that the Paramount decree was abolished.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Why did they abolish it?
Yeah.
What happened to make them change it?
Because there was a feeling that the studios no longer needed to be under that control because things had changed with television and streaming services, and so they weren't afraid that the movie studios were going to control the whole process anymore. And so it happened very quietly.
Yeah.
AMC theaters...
Nobody sued or anything. It just happened.
No, it was allowed by a federal judge in New York, and the Department of Justice said that the decree would be expired, and that was it.
Wow.
So AMC is barely surviving bankruptcy. No one's really interested in theaters, and streaming services are taking off. Enter 2023, Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour. Taylor Swift makes her own documentary of the tour at a cost of $30 to $40 million. Doesn't use a movie studio to do it. Then she goes ahead and cuts a deal directly with AMC Theaters, cutting out the studio and the distribution part of it, and has such a sweetheart deal with AMC that she's even dictating the ticket prices of what is going to be charged to come see that documentary movie. And in fact, the studios had to rearrange their schedule for releases coming up in October because they knew that they couldn't compete with the Taylor Swift documentary. And so you have somebody who came in with no studio, no distribution company, and it's unknown how Hollywood is going to react to all this, but they weren't happy about it. And so we go from the jazz singer in 1927 all the way to 2023, and our entertainment choices and the way that the whole movie process has come about has been in this constant change, and we're in for another change. I don't know what the change is going to be, but it's important to understand the background and the laws that control how movies are made, distributed, and shown.
Wow.
I think that's fascinating.
I never knew most of that.
No, right? And so the idea that maybe we're sitting at home and we're thinking, like, well, why do they always charge this price?
Yeah.
Or, why does it have to go that way?
Yeah.
I never knew that there was, like, lawsuits that established this, that, and the other to get us to where we are here.
No.
So I just think that's kind of fascinating.
Nobody ever imagined that somebody independent could do something
Could
that.
make their own movie that people would rearrange.
Because of the money? Like, because how much it is to put on a production like that?
It's an incredible amount of money, yes.
Wow.
And the fact that a movie theater would rearrange what they have that's coming out. Because you know how it is.
Right.
When you go to the movie, you can, like, look at 6 different theaters and they're all showing the same thing.
Right.
And you just pick the time that it goes
Right.
best. But you also always know what the ticket price is going to be, right? I never even thought about that. But they pretty much always have the same amount that you have to pay to go as well. And now she's charging her own amount, whatever it'll be, and saying...
I think it's like $19 or something like that for an adult ticket to see the documentary of the Eras Tour. And you can bank on the fact that a lot of people
she'll make
are
it.
going to go see
Yeah.
that. Oh, yeah.
It'll be successful.
Yeah.
Do you think people might follow this, or do you think Taylor's so big that no one can follow this?
Nobody knows.
Wow.
And so, the Hollywood studios are looking at the various entertainment options, and they don't want to lose their power with respect to the distribution and showing of movies. And so I don't think that movie theaters are gone. I think that the pandemic took a toll on them, but they're gonna do very well in the future. Mm-hmm. And the question now is, how are the Hollywood movie studios gonna come back in and try to control that process? Because they just watch somebody else walk right in and do it.
And just do it. And I do think that just the way entertainment is changing with the streaming, because that's ultimately the reason there's a writer's strike and an actor's strike right now, is because the streaming is taking away their cut of what they should get in their contracts, and these studios are walking away with that kind of money. So I think it's great that people now have a voice, that they're going out and saying, no, if I did it, I deserve to be paid for it, because, a songwriter would normally have that until the contract takes it away from them, right?
And it's probably been a while since Hollywood has ever quaked about anything, so it must be very
Taylor
interesting.
Swift.
Wow.
Yeah. So, as he said, we don't really know what the outcome is going to be, but I think it's interesting for us to know, wow, there's a reason this is happening, and this is breaking news, because it's a big deal.
Yeah.
So
and now you guys know about it.
Yeah.
And it all started with the jazz singer. I'm not an expert on the movies and everything. I just was aware of how the laws had changed. Yeah. So I thought it was interesting to share.
Yeah.
And like you, I'm going to be interested in watching what happens.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for being on. We're so happy that you were on From the Wings.
I know, it was
in
nice to have him
person.
here. Yes. He's now going to become our resident entertainment lawyer.
He's a specialist, like lawyer sounds.
Lawyer, yes. Until next time, this is just me.
And me.
And me.
Talking to you
From the Wings.